Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is M. Christian. I have the great honor of being one of the publishers of Digital Parchment Services, a Strange Particle Press imprint, and we're sitting down today and having a nice little chat with one of my all-time favorite, and yes, you can blush over this, Ernest, writers is ERNEST Hogan, who we have the extreme honor of working with to get some of his books back in print, as well as some new books. And I thought today, Ernest, we could just talk about this wonderful experience you just had about going down to, it was University of Riverside, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, now give us some of the background of how this happens. It sounds like a great story.
Well, it just, it was, well, as with a lot of things happening these days, I was, answering my email. There was a message there from Nalo Hopkinson, author of The Brown Girl in the Ring and various other books, and she wanted to know if I would be interested in doing a class, and I had been to Riverside the previous year for their Day of Latino Science Fiction when they would the Jesus Trevino, who was not only documented a lot of the Chicano history back in the 70s, but he also has directed shows like Star Trek: Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5, and he was donated some of his scripts to the Eaton Library, and so they had this little Chicano science fiction thing. They invited a bunch of writers from the Bloga, which is another website I write for, and it was a fun thing. We split the commission in. I got to meet some of the people there, and it was kind of an interesting experience. And so then when they asked me to do this class for their Writers Week, which they have every year, I thought about it and I said, it's an interesting experience to do it. I hadn't taught before, but I wondered about what I can do that a regular creative writing teacher can't. And then I guess I have 40 years experience writing and submitting stories and all that, and it turns out I have an awful lot to say about it. Yeah.
And of course, what's wonderful about Riverside, as you just mentioned, also is they have the Eaton collection, which is, the world's largest collection of science fiction documentation, I think, is how it goes.
Books, comic books, fanzines. I was just looking over what they have there, and you can't even get to a lot of it's in what they call the vault, but it's and they're basically collecting just about everything that they can. And it looks like between the creative writing and the Eaton collection, the Riverside is becoming like a big center for the study and promotion of science fiction.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful, and it sounds like you had a fantastic time. Can you talk a little bit about what your class is about? I mean, what did you cover, and what kind of responses you got?
Oh yeah. Well, basically, what I had, I talked to Nala about it, and it was mostly most of the people were there were from her graduate creative writing students. And so I figured that I would orient it towards basically the whole writing process, and then maybe later talk a little more about my personal experiences and that. So basically, I had gathered together a bunch of what I call good writing advice, and also I gave like other people's advice, like like Ray Bradbury and Elmore Leonard and a few other writers. But I kind of also warned them that you got these rules are all great, but you got to kind of remember who made these rules, what were the circumstances that they worked, and all that. And also be willing to test them. I break rules all the time, and sometimes I get them published. So I like the usual thing that people do. We're telling them these do's and don'ts and all that. But I tell them don't take that. Don't consider that to be set in stone.
Well, okay. I'm curious. You got to tell me some of your examples of this. I mean, I'm familiar with what Bradbury and I think Leonard said on writing, but let's give us some of yours now.
Okay. Well, after I did the other few. Also my wife has always been a lot more Emily Davenport. She also writes under Lee Hogan and what her other Maggie Thomas or her other pseudonyms that she's used, and she's always been more about talking about writing and all that. So I had some of hers, and I basically I'm trying to get them to be open. You know, question when some of these rules and what they're for and all that. I keep seeing. People some editors will reject me right away because you broke this certain rule and all that, and then like the next editor I send them to says this story is great, I'm publishing it, and it gets published almost perfectly, you know, and so sometimes a little too fast. Okay, kind of wish, maybe we should have did a little more proofreading here, but at the same time it's a serious thing, and also I tend to work. You know, I've never actually been able to make a total living at the road. There was a brief time when both Emily and I had had sold novels, and it looked like it was something to go on for a while, and so we had quit the day job and we're being writer, but that didn't last very long. So suddenly you had to do stuff. So I basically told them, get used to being interrupted. It seems to be, the whole dream. Oh, I'll rent a cabin somewhere and go out there and write a novel and all that, and of course that seems to never work. I think William Burroughs says it's because you do that, you cut off your input, and all this annoying stuff that happens in real life and everything, it feeds you to make you want to go and create stories and all that. And if you cut yourself off from that, it doesn't do that. But also it just, I mean, I would love to just wake up in the morning and work on stories all day and then have dinner and all that, and that would be ideal, but it's not going to work. You have to go. You got to do other things. Also, real life, just emergencies happen. You suddenly have to run out and do that. And so I get used to being interrupted. Learn how to write on the run. I've written in little tiny notebooks. I've written in I always have a notebook or a sketchbook around me that I usually am scribbling or drawing stuff in. That tends to be my way of working. It's kind of becoming electronic because I recently started experimenting. I downloaded. Microsoft Word into my iPod Touch, and also through that and a Dropbox account, I can now write things. So I have to basically get used to writing with one finger, typing with one finger on a teeny tiny screen. But I'm getting used to it. It's just starting to flow a little bit. Because I had several stories that were like lying there unfinished, and I was wondering when I was going to do that. You know what? I have all these break times at work that right now I'm just having fun reading Pulp Fiction and all that, and I thought, you know what, I should probably do some more writing there. So I just got this story, and it looks like it's running smoothly, and it's all, I read it in Word on the iTouch and put it into Dropbox. I can put it onto my desktop, and I said, there's some possibilities here. I have not seen that, but basically you got to kind of. I mean, I love the romantic thing of the Hemingway-esque writer, with his because I started out on manual typewriters, and now it's romantic as all hell. You're making all this noise and it's so physical, and it's like it's like being in the boxing ring or something. You're bam bam bam. You're literally pounding out your story. And then making your corrections of a bitch and all that. So as I got talked into electric typewriters and then computers, I realized it's a little better. But I'm working out of that. I'm getting more into the technology, and that's another thing to get into.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's always funny talking to someone who's particularly an SF writer and resists the technology. It makes things so much easier.
Like the science fiction magazines were like the last ones to go they start electronic submissions. And like friends of mine would say, they submit electronically, everybody except for and I think the last ones, I think fantasy and science fiction finally decided to go that way, and with their new editor and all that. But that does seem to be the way. I mean, telling people about all the making Xerox copies of your manuscripts and all that, they're gonna look at you now like, what?
Oh yes, I remember using terms that no one seems to remember anymore, like SASE. And it's like no one knows what SASE means anymore.
Oh yeah. You send that and they go, what did you send me this envelope for?
And like you just said it perfectly. It's so funny that SF has been a little slow catching up with this, because every time I go to a convention and I mention I work for publishing companies and they do a lot of ebooks, they're like, oh, but I still like paper. It's like, everybody likes paper, but ebooks are so much better.
Oh yeah, it's and I think in some ways ebooks are the new pulp.
Yes.
I think so. We're seeing a lot of the same things, and you know, science fiction kind of always started out in the weird experimental, you know, not quite respectable medium, like the dime novel, the penny dreadfuls, and then later the pulp magazine, the paperback, and I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, that the places where the new things come. So.
Exactly, it'd be more experimental. You can play more. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about this new publishing world. I mean, yeah, there's certain drawbacks. I mean, the whole concept of being like an advance is pretty much gone unless you're huge.
Oh, I know, yeah. But basically, things are getting published. I mean, I kind of go, about I was like 5 years ago. I was kind of convinced that my career was probably just done, and I was like I didn't see any chance of publishing another novel. It was getting harder and I could do short stories, but it was getting harder and harder. And then I started participating in social media, which also, that's actually another thing that I kind of noticed is becoming essential for a writer.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
If they don't know about you. And unless you're writing something that's so brilliant that they're gonna, and we all think that's our works like that. But once you send it around through, they'll have their thing. But yeah, I once people found out about me, I noticed new things keep coming in, new opportunities and all that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.